and welcome everybody. We are here for the fourth and final top 8 match, which we are going to be going ahead and showing you of this Victory Road Circuit Winter Series Grand Final. I myself am Costa, aka Quality, joined by Mr. Jamie Boyd himself, and we've got a very exciting match coming up. Flavio del Pidio versus Kyle Geffner. Jamie, this is looking very, very hyped to see who's going to be able to reach the semi-finals stage of this event.
Yeah, definitely hype, and it's going to be interesting to see which non-Zacian restricted is going to be joining the other 3 in the top 4 at this point, whether that's going to be a Solgaleo or it's going to be a Groudon. Solgaleo may be rounding out all the steel types, but Groudon will be very effective against that Zacian, but we'll have to see going into this match.
Of course, as we did see the Guillermo going ahead and being able to clinch his position in the top 4 over Taran there, as it seems to be very powerful in general. Like, he was actually the only person to bring Dragapult at the minute, being able to reach the top 4 stage, I believe.
Yeah, I believe that's correct, yeah. And the Rotom Heat as well, really strong showing in that previous match. Just absolutely dominated the game 1 and put a lot of pressure on game 2. Really can show just the individual Pokemon how effective they can be if you fall into the right matchups.
100%. And of course, without any further ado, ladies and gents, I think we should go straight into it. Get that hype going, as we are going to be going ahead and seeing Flavio's accomplishments section and his team actually bringing that Solgaleo, Spectre, Grimmsnarl, Tapu Fini, Rotom Heat, and the Porygon 2. So he's the only player to actually have Solgaleo in the entire of the top 16 stage here, and being able to bring it strong, hoping to try to propel it straight through to the semi-finals.
Yeah, Pokemon that Flavio's been using to quite a lot of success recently. A very strong Solgaleo player, paired obviously with that Spectria, a very common combination where you can bulldoze your own Solgaleo and get that weakness policy going. And another Rotom Heat here in this team as well, so it should be a really good showing here, as it is going to be facing down a Groudon, a Sun team, and we saw how effective a Rotom Heat was against that Sun team. So we can have a look at the team from Kyle here, as he is going to be rocking that Groudon Sun team. Pretty standard team at this point. Those 6 Pokemon have been paired together quite often, so just a very, very tried and true team coming here from Kyle.
Yeah, as we have actually witnessed a very common trend, Grimmsnarl in the top 8 today. I believe out of the 8 teams, 7 of them actually brought Grimmsnarl. So Grimmsnarl seeming to be quite a staple, being able to just do all loads, all sorts of things, should I say, as getting screens up, getting the Spirit Break, which could actually negate or decrease special attacks on whichever target it lands on, but it could even be running Thunder Waves, Sucker Punch priorities, everything, you name it. Having it next to Porygon 2, Groudon, it seems like a very solid Sun mode as well. So we are going to be going straight into team preview right now, as the trainers will be able to start prepping up and selecting their Pokemon going into this. So how are we feeling about Kyle's situation? Because that Solgaleo might maybe want to try to set itself up from the get-go on Flavio's side.
You got to be careful of activating the weakness policy on the Solgaleo. The main ways would be that Charizard and that Groudon. Charizard would be able to do a huge amount of damage if the Sun was up from the Groudon into that Solgaleo as well. But yeah, the Spectria could also just be activating itself by going for the Bulldoze. The Rotom Heat as well on Flavio's side. We saw how effective it was against a Sun team. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Flavio does decide to bring that Rotom Heat to this matchup. We'll have to see what Kyle has on his team to be able to break through that Rotom Heat. So we saw there was Rock Slide mainly in the previous game. Maybe there's a Rock Slide on that Groudon to be able to hit that Rotom Heat so super effectively. But looks like we're going to be jumping into this game.
Yeah, we will indeed. And like you said, that's definitely something to note, trying to have a way to hit and target down that Rotom Heat, which should absolutely deal so much destruction if left untapped. As we're going to be seeing Kyle go ahead and bring the Groudon and Venusaur mode over on his side of the field, whilst Flavio's going to be leading with Porygon 2 and the Spectre.
Yes, we saw the Sun lead in the previous game, and now it's the different Sun lead, where it's the restricted setting the Sun instead. And it looks like the Porygon 2 traced that chlorophyll of the Venusaur there. So the Porygon 2 is going to be a little bit speedier here. Maybe if it was deciding to set up the Trick Room before, it might be having some second thoughts there, because it is now at double speed. That could definitely help out getting the damage into the Groudon before it attacks as well. But you do have that Spectria as a lead. The Spectria does carry Will-O-Wisp, so if you do want to be going for Will-O-Wisp into that Groudon to harvest damage outputs, it's definitely an option as well. And Snarl as well could be reducing the damage output of the Venusaur. But since the Venusaur is in the Sun, it is going to be outspeeding that Spectria at this point. Does threaten those Sleep Powders or their immediate Gigantamax to try and get the G-Max Vinash going, or maybe increase its special defenses with that Max Quake. But it is able to attack before the Spectria would be able to Snarl it.
As we're actually going to be seeing the Groudon switch out, maybe fearing that Will-O-Wisp that you did mention there, Jamie, and the Incineroar is going to be taking its place, immune to Will-O-Wisp if it, of course, does come out as no Dynamaxes, just a raw Leaf Storm coming out from the Venusaur into the Spectre slot, being able to bring it down to less than half of its HP, and we do get confirmation the Will-O-Wisp trying to target down the Incineroar, not being able to get it to actually land the burn, obviously because it is that fire typing, as the Porygon 2 actually gets an Eerie Impulse onto the Venusaur, bringing it down now to -4 of its special attack.
Yeah, really not going to be doing too much damage at this point. Doing a nice bit of damage to the Spectria at neutral, but yeah, at -4 now, I wouldn't be surprised if the Venusaur does want to switch out or just start going for those Sleep Powders as well. Still going to be in the Sun with the Chlorophyll, so would be outspeeding both the Porygon 2 and the Spectria here. If it does want to just go for a Sleep Powder, it does really have its option as well as the Incineroar applying Fake Out Pressure. Could just go for a Fake Out into that Porygon 2, go for a Sleep Powder into that Spectra as well. And if the Sleep Powder does connect, then the Flavio won't be able to achieve anything this turn.
Exactly, and of course, the Porygon 2 would actually be faster than the Incineroar 2, but we're actually going to be seeing the Venusaur wanting to reset its special attack stages, switching out for Grimmsnarl, whilst the Porygon 2 actually switches out for the Solgaleo, so wanting to maybe not have the Chlorophyll boost anymore as an ability, should I say, due to Trace, but the Bulldoze actually comes out, so this could actually go very badly here for Flavio if Kyle's decided to just go for a very raw Flare Blitz into the Solgaleo slot, as we haven't actually seen a Fake Out right now, but no, we're actually just going to be seeing the Parting Shot going into the Spectre slot, wanting to be able to reduce its damage output as well as getting that pivot action going for himself. So Kyle being able to, during the mid-turn phases, decide what Pokemon he would want to bring onto the field from the back to better comprehend and actually tackle this Solgaleo. Being able to have the weakness policy boost activated is now at +2 of its attack, and of course it is not affected by Bulldozer's secondary effect being reducing the speed, but we're actually going to be seeing Venusaur come back now onto the field.
Yeah, Venusaur makes a lot of sense here. Again, still threatening those Sleep Powders into that Solgaleo that did receive the weakness policy boost. Something players don't do too often. You often see the Spectre and Solgaleo as a lead, and then you immediately Bulldoze and Dynamax. But switching in the Solgaleo and getting that Bulldoze off, you get that weakness policy before any Dynamax has happened. So now you have the choice of whether you want to go for the Dynamax or just go on the offensive with some regular attacks like the Sunsteel Strike into the Venusaur as well. So going to be threatening a lot of damage, so you really need to start putting on some pressure onto that Solgaleo, whether that is with some Max Quakes coming out from the Venusaur, or if it is just going to be those Sleep Powders.
As we're going to be seeing the Spectre switching out for the Rotom Heat now, so maybe anticipating an attack there or even a Sleep Powder for any reason from Kyle, but he just wants to be able to get the Rotom Heat in a position where it could start threatening this Venusaur appropriately. As talking about Venusaur, we're going to be seeing it go ahead, go for the Gigantamax and move first before we're potentially going to be seeing Flavio go for it. But no, Flavio doesn't go for a Dynamax with his Solgaleo. He does actually just go for the very simple Protect, as the Reflect is going to be setting up from on to Kyle's side with the Grimmsnarl, of course, as the G-Max Vine Lash is going to be coming out, targets into the Rotom. Of course, will not be dealing as much damage, but it will, more importantly, be getting its secondary effect of the residual damage dealt over time.
Yeah, so going to bring that Rotom to just above half HP there. So very nice play from Kyle, getting the right target with that G-Max Vine Lash. Also being able to get that Reflect up, so the Venusaur will be able to take on the Solgaleo a little bit better. And one of the downsides as well of just going for the Protect of the Solgaleo, it takes a little bit more chip from that Vine Lash, and that could potentially put it into range of Max Quake from the Venusaur if the Solgaleo does not decide to Dynamax. But since the Rotom has taken so much damage at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if the Solgaleo is still going to be the Pokemon that Flavio would want to Dynamax, whether it wants to get the Steel Spike off to start increasing the defenses ready for that Groudon, or if it wants to start going for some Max Quakes as well, so that increase the special defense against this Gigantamax Venusaur. But at the moment, the Rotom is still in a very good position. It's still in the sun, so it'd still be able to threaten a huge amount of damage with an Overheat into this Venusaur.
As we're going to be actually seeing the Grimmsnarl switch out now for the Incineroar, maybe wanting to try to have some fake out pressure on the following turn, as well as safeguarding that Grimmsnarl a bit, maybe into an oncoming Steel type move from the Solgaleo, whether it does decide to Dynamax or not, as we are going to be seeing the Dynamax go for Flavio. Are you expecting Solgaleo?
Solgaleo is definitely healthier than the Rotom at this point, so you get to optimize the Dynamax with the amount of HP you get, so going to be able to increase the defenses as well. The Rotom would have just been able to go for Max Flares, but the sun's already up.
And I think that's definitely what Flavio's recognized there, as Kyle's gone for the the Max Guard, apologies, on the Venusaur's slide, as the Solgaleo was hoping to target it down, as well as the Rotom. So very valuable Max Guard from Kyle's side there, essentially wasting a turn of Dynamax over on Flavio's side with the Solgaleo.
Very nice Max Guard there. And now you've got the fake out pressure on the field with the Incineroar. You can go for that fake out into the Rotom, and there won't be a sun boosted overheat into the Venusaur on its final turn of Gigantamax. And with the Reflect that the Grimmsnarl set up as well, Venusaur should be able to take even the boosted Max Steel Spike from the Solgaleo. So very nice Max Guard there. Very good pivot into that Incineroar. And as well as getting the fake out into the Rotom, it will just take another round of the G-Max Vine Lash. So it'll put the Rotom super low, really in range of any attack that Kyle would want to go for in the future. And that leaves the Venusaur open to just be able to go for a Max Quake or even a Max Flare at this point into the Solgaleo, because we are still in the sun. It would be able to do a lot of damage.
As the Incineroar is going to be faking out the Rotom, causing it to flinch, of course, as Max Flare comes up from the Venusaur now. The weakness policy has already been procced, but more importantly, will be dealing a good chunk of damage onto it, as the Solgaleo is going to be retaliating, goes for Max Quake into the Incineroar, picks up the KO, whilst also awarding itself and its ally Rotom Heat a special defense boost. Boots, of course, and getting rid of this Incineroar could actually prove to be quite detrimental. Kyle no longer has any fake out, and the sun does actually expire, which could perhaps be introducing once again the Groudon onto the field.
Yeah, it's be good timing if the Groudon does come onto the field here, because you would be able to reset that weather and get all the 5 turns of Sun back for your Venusaur, because the Porygon 2 is still waiting in the back. We're not going to be getting any Trick Room at the moment, so Groudon coming in here, going to be resetting that Sun, and now the Venusaur is definitely going to be faster than the Rotom and the Solgaleo at this point. We'll have to see how fast the Groudon and the Solgaleo are in respect to each other. It'll be very close if the Solgaleo is in range of a Weather Ball based on the Max Flare damage from the previous turn. Probably enough after another round of Vine Lash, but then if it is able to survive that attack, we'll be able to go for one more Dynamax move, whether that's the Steel Spike or the Max Quake at this point. Rotom is very low, and even if it's not targeted at this point, it would go down to the G-Max Vine Lash at this point. You may still want to go for a Rock Slide, so to try and take out the Rotom before it goes for any overheats, and that would come down to who's faster between the Rotom and the Groudon as well. But if you do manage to get that sun boosted overheat into the Venusaur is almost certainly going to be KO'd at that point.
As we're going to be seeing the Venusaur go for the Sleep Powder, and it connects, Jamie, into the Solgaleo slot, not allowing it to actually move for its final Dynamax turn, as we are going to be seeing Groudon actually go for the Precipice Blades. You see the Levitate from the Rotom Heat activating there, and it picks up the KO. Solgaleo dispatched with and out of game 1 right now. Super clutch Sleep Powder being able to connect there, not allowing the Solgaleo to move at all, as Overheat will be finally coming up from this Rotom Heat and landing onto the Venusaur, picking up a critical hit and a KO, whilst also reducing its special attack stages down to -2. What a turn of events before it does go down to that G-Max Vine Lash residual damage.
Very fortunate hitting that sleep powder there. The Solgaleo would have been able to get off an attack before the Groudon. We did see that it moved before that Groudon, so a lot of damage missed out from Flavio here with that sleep powder connect. And now it's down to the Spectria and the Porygon 2 against this Groudon and Grimmsnarl. So Grimmsnarl, a very good Pokemon to be facing down against the Spectria, but you still do need to find a way through that Porygon 2. And the Spectria is carrying Will-O-Wisp. If it does manage to connect a Will-O-Wisp onto this Groudon, it may not be able to have the firepower to break through this Porygon 2 here. You should be seeing a Swords Dance on the Groudon at some point to be able to break through the Porygon 2. That would mitigate the Will-O-Wisp that could come out from the Spectria as well. The Spectria may be in range of even a Spirit Break at this point. Definitely from a Precipice Blades. Maybe not from a Burn Precipice Blades, but you also do need to start going for those Swords Dances. But at the same time, this Porygon 2 is the Foul Play one. It does have Trace and doesn't care about any of its attacks, so it does go for Foul Play instead. So it's going to be an awkward interaction. If you go for the burn on the Groudon, it needs to start Swords Dancing, but then if it does, Foul Play is going to be doing even more damage.
As we're going to be seeing Scary Face coming up from the Grimmsnarl, landing onto the Spectria, being able to reduce it down to -2 of its speed stat stages, as Precipice Blades is going to actually miss on the Porygon 2, but it lands onto the Spectria, being able to bring it down. Very smooth play there with the Scary Face interaction double up, as Foul Play comes out from the Porygon 2, does land onto the Groudon, but it does very, very negligible damage, as we just seen there.
Yeah, and really needs to get that Will-O-Wisp onto the Groudon, and the Scary Face really nice there, allowing that Groudon to move first before it could be burnt and take out the Spectria. And Foul Play's really not doing too much damage to this Groudon. It could just start going just for Precipice Blades at this point, ignore the Swords Dances, because now you do have 2 Pokemon attacking this Porygon 2, with the Spirit Break available to the Grimmsnarl as well, and that's really not threatened down by the Foul Play at all. So you can just slowly chip away at this Porygon 2. It does eventually have to recover, but every time it does, that's just another round of 2 attacks hitting into this Porygon 2.
As we're going to be seeing the Groudon go for the Protect on Kyle's side, just wanting to maybe avoid any further Foul Play damage. Spirit Break does come out from the Grimmsnarl, though, is going to be able to reduce the special attack on the Porygon 2, which at this point does not matter, as it does not have a specially offensive move. And at this situation, it's just, I think, Jamie whittling down the Porygon 2.
You still have to connect with your Precipice Blades at least, so some inaccuracy coming into play here. But at least this first one does connect, and it is now single target as well. So bringing the Porygon 2 down to below half its HP. So at this point, it does need to recover, and if it doesn't go for recover, it's just going to be in range of another Precipice Blades in the next turn.
As it is not even going for the recover, it tries to go for the Foul Play. In this situation, Jamie, I think it's like you said, as long as Groudon could get any sort of damage off in combination with the Spirit Break from the Grimmsnarl, this seems to be game 1 for Kyle.
Yeah, you still got to dodge the Precipice Blades. I'm quite surprised not seeing a Trick Room at least from the Porygon 2. That would allow it to go for the recovers before any of the damage can come out. If it went for the Trick Room, it could definitely get to recover and try and dodge the Precipice Blades, but at this point, it just has to dodge.
Oh, but we're actually going to be seeing it move first. Of course, we forgot the Trace of the Porygon 2 allows the Porygon 2 to actually have that very interesting situation go upon it, but a critical hit from the Precipice Blades, single target connecting, Spirit Break additionally just absolutely rocking this Porygon 2's efforts in trying to get away from this 2 versus 1 with a win.
Yeah, still quite an interesting interaction with the Trace. They're still carrying over that Chlorophyll, even after the Venusaur was gone, but still not enough to be able to break through the Grimmsnarl and the Groudon. It would have to be many Precipice Blades dodges to be able to whittle down with Foul Play, and it may not have even had enough Foul Plays to take the KO on both Groudon and Grimmsnarl at that point. Grimmsnarl would be taking almost no damage at that point. At least the Porygon 2 would have had access to recovery, and the Grimmsnarl wouldn't, so it would have been very, very slow to be able to break it down, but yeah, not enough firepower in the end. That Sleep Powder connecting with the Solgaleo, very crucial. Wasted 2 turns of the Dynamax on the Solgaleo, one with the Max Guard, one with the Sleep Powder as well. So Flavio really wasn't able to make use of that weakness policy boosted Solgaleo.
It wasn't, and I think it was a bit of an awkward interaction, like you were talking about, a bit of a paradox. Stuck in between, do you want to be reducing the damage output of this Groudon, or do you actually be wanting to just let it be so you try to get as much damage as you can with the Foul Play? But the 2 versus 1 scenario there was very problematic for Pidio. Do you think that if Flavio's Porygon 2 had not been crit there, that he would have had some sort of scenario to actually win out 2 versus 1 with Prankster Porygon 2?
I think the Precipice Blades would have had to dodge quite a few times for Flavio to have a chance. One dodge here or there probably isn't enough. You need probably multiple in a row at that point. Maybe needs to rely on that Rotom Heat a little bit more. It did take a Vinash on the switch in and got brought to just over half its HP without doing anything. And if you don't let it take that, if you do try and set it up with the Nasty Plots before, it could actually start doing some massive damage, and a little bit too reliant on the Solgaleo, and then ended up only being able to use one turn of its Dynamax. So really needs to make use of its Dynamax a lot more effectively. Whether that comes down to Sleep Powders in the end, we'll have to see. But that Sleep Powder hitting in the first game was very crucial. And Rotom Heat, it would be the way to avoid that Sleep Powders. So maybe a little bit more reliance on the Rotom Heat here. There was a very nice Bulldoze switch in with the spot the activation of the Solgaleo, but then Kyle was able to just dance around that.
Yeah, he really was, and he didn't need to go too risky there. He was in a situation where he still had options to go, of course, as the Venusaur does always outspeed with the Sun and just exerts so much pressure, as we've seen Kyle opt for the same lead. Whilst Flavio is actually going to be changing it up, he brings the Grimmsnarl and the Rotom Heat now as a lead over on his side of the field.
Yeah, so Rotom Heat are going to be a very good Pokemon into both the Venusaur and the Groudon. The Groudon does have access to Rock Slide, so if it does want to go on the offensive, maybe even with the max Rockfall at this point, would be able to do some good damage to the Rotom. But the Rotom's really not threatened too much by this Venusaur. Probably not in the opportunity to set up a Nasty Plot, because it is still threatened a bit by that Groudon, but definitely threatening down that Venusaur with some Sun Boosted, either Overheat or max flares at this point. And you've got the Grimmsnarl on the field to be able to set the screens, whether that's the Reflect if you're scared of the rock moves coming up from the Groudon, or if you want to start setting up the light screen in case that Venusaur decides to go on the offensive instead.
As we're going to actually be seeing the Venusaur switching out for the Grimmsnarl now, maybe wanting to protect itself from a huge cataclysmic max flare if the Rotom did decide to Dynamax. But the Rotom's actually going to be switching out for the Solgaleo now, and we just see a very slow play from Flavio's side, just setting up the Reflect, but Kyle immediately responds with a Swords Dance setup over on his side of the field, and having Grimmsnarl on his side too means that he could also get screens going for himself.
Yeah, now we've got the other restricted getting a boost here with the Sword Stance instead. So now Groudon is really going to be threatening a lot of damage into that Solgaleo. If it's just Precipice Blades, that's probably enough to pick up the knockout on the Solgaleo. It would have to Dynamax to be able to survive at that point. But then there is always the possibility to just switch straight back into your Rotom Heats to try and avoid the Precipice Blades with that Levitate as well. But then at the same time, if the Groudon just decides to go for a Rock Slide and catches a Rotom Heat on the switch in, that would still be doing a huge amount of damage. The Grimmsnarls on both sides of the field are going to be able to mitigate the damage somewhat with their Reflects. So maybe the Reflects will be allowed the Solgaleo to survive if it does decide to stay in here, and it looks like it is.
Oh, we see Flavio's going to be going for the Dynamax on his side of the field. He might be trying to go ahead and just exert that pressure that we were talking about. The Max Steel Spikes obviously worked quite well with Solgaleo because it is weak to ground type moves. So if it does accept one coming its way, it will be proccing a weakness policy, but it will also be boosting its defenses from the Max Steel Spike. And we are going to be seeing Kyle respond with a Groudon Dynamax from what it seems, Jamie.
Yeah, so going to be going on the offensive. Make use of those Swords Dance boosts that you've got from the Groudon, and it will be able to take any Max Steel Spikes coming out from the Solgaleo a lot better. So we'll have to see if it did decide to go for that Max Quake in the face of that potential Rotom Heat switch in.
Oh, as we are going to be seeing the Grimmsnarl on Kyle's side going for the Reflect, wanting to protect itself and its teammate a tiny bit more, as we see the Sucker Punch reveal from the Grimmsnarl on Flavio's side, being able to proc the weakness policy. So we see Solgaleo trying to go all hands in with the damage into the Groudon slot, as it's not going to be able to deal as much, not only because of Groudon's gargantuan physical bulk, but as well due to that Reflect that Kyle was able to set up with his own Grimmsnarl, as Max Quake is going to be coming out from that Groudon, goes into the Solgaleo, definitely deals more of a dent in Solgaleo's defenses there, even if it is with a +1 defense boost. That was so much damage thanks to that Swords Dance previously set up.
You see how effective the damage mitigation is as well with the Reflect and getting a Steel Spike boost before the Groudon was able to attack. Solgaleo able to survive that big Max Quake in quite comfortable HP as well. But now if you're Kyle, you're probably feeling a bit more comfortable to still launch Max Quakes into that Solgaleo, as if they do switch out into the Rotom Heat, that's the Dynamax wasted on Flavio's side. So a very nice Dynamax for the Groudon here. Probably still going to be in range with Solgaleo with another Max Quake, but if it does get another Max Steel Spike boost, which would KO the Grimmsnarl as well at this point, may be able to survive another one of those Max Quakes. So it's going to be very close if that Solgaleo will be able to survive.
It really will be, as in this situation, I think he wants to try to exert as much pressure as he can. It's so close to actually being picked up with a KO, as we're actually going to be seeing the Grimmsnarl switch out for the Incineroar now, not being able to affect Solgaleo's clear body, of course. It will be able to reduce the damage output of the Grimmsnarl, but it's not going to matter, as that is going to be switching out for the Tapu Fini coming in on Flavio's side, being able to set up the Misty Terrain, whilst also potentially taking a hit, but it all depends on the scenario. I think it's all about board management and positioning that Flavio's trying to think about, as the Max Steel Spike goes into the Groudon. Not gonna be enough for a 2-hit KO within the previous HP range on the Groudon, but more importantly, it actually will be proccing a Citrus Berry, a HP recovery from the Groudon, so definitely not being able to pick it up next turn, as more importantly, it's at +2 defense right now. Does this Groudon pick up the KO on Solgaleo? It barely misses. It's able to survive with 22 HP and allowed to actually get a move going the following turn, as of course Fake Out doesn't affect Dynamax Pokemon.
And not in range of the Fake Out either, so I think Flavio is going to be able to make use of all 3 turns of his Dynamax here. We're going to see how effective that is. It's been able to survive the Groudon going for 2+2 Max Quakes into that Solgaleo, so going to be a really good showing for this Solgaleo here. The adjustment of the Tapu Fini makes a lot of sense. The Sleep Powder was very crucial in stopping the Solgaleo in that game 1, so being able to stop any Sleep Powders from the Venusaur in the future is going to be very useful for this Tapu Fini here as well. But Solgaleo, it does have the opportunity to launch one more Max move. If that's a Max Quake into the Incineroar, it's definitely going to be picking up the KO there, and it looks like the Groudon is going to be protecting himself from that potential Max move.
Exactly, as it's not even being targeted. Flavio picking the correct slot. Max Quick goes into the Incineroar, picks up the KO, and not only is it boosting itself now in special defense, it is also boosting this Tapu Fini, which is it's starting to look like a very big threat, especially if there's a Calm Mind coming out, which it does actually go for. It is now at +2 of its special defense, +1 of its defense, and +1 as well on its special attack. So it's definitely trying to shape up to be a big threat for Kyle's side if he's not able to take care of it very soon.
Yeah, and the Venusaur coming in is a way to threaten that Tapu Fini, but with that +2 special defense, it's actually going to be able to take on this Venusaur a lot better than it would have been able to before. But Venusaur is going to be able to threaten the KO on the Solgaleo at this point, because it is at such low HP, definitely in range of any attack that the Venusaur would want to go for at this point. But the Groudon is still going to be 2 stages of increased attack. That Precipice Blade into the Tapu Fini would still do a lot of damage, so we'll have to see the speed interactions here of the Tapu Fini and the Groudon. But the Tapu Fini is only at 1 stage of increased special attack. The Groudon has been going for some Max Quakes as well, so it's also going to be increased stages of special defense. Should really be able to take on this Tapu Fini as well. So should really be seeing a Venusaur trying to take the knockout on this Venusaur, and then we'll have to see who's faster between the Tapu Fini and the Groudon, and if that Groudon is feeling accurate this turn.
Exactly. It's going to be very crucial right now if Kyle reads a Protect or not into the Solgaleo slot, which it does actually go for. So this is the real pivotal moment, as it does try to pick up the KO with it. Not able to do so, as the Groudon is going to be outspeeding, but it's not going for Precipice Blades. It's actually going for another Swords Dance, being able to bring it up now to +4 of its attack, and taking a hit from the Moonblast of the Tapu Fini, but thanks to its Max Quake boost from the previous turns, able to be of course able to tank those that damage, to be honest.
Swords Dance makes a lot of sense there. You'd probably have to connect 2 Precipice Blades into Tapu Fini to pick up the knockouts, but now with that extra Swords Dance being at +4, you should be able to knock the Tapu Fini out in 1 Precipice Blades, and that means you only need to connect 1 time, because the Venusaur is still definitely going to be able to take the knockout on this Solgaleo, and if the Solgaleo does switch out anyway to try and avoid that KO, Groudon is still going to have the opportunity to go for that Precipice Blades, as we have seen that it did outspeed that Tapu Fini that turn. So we'll just have to see whether the Precipice Blades is going to be accurate into this Tapu Fini or not. The Moonblast probably going to be enough on the Groudon based on the previous damage. It'll be pretty close if it is able to get an attack off.
Ooh, but we're actually going to see Groudon go on the defensive. Not what you'd expect from this turn, as the Earth Power comes out and does pick up the KO onto the Solgaleo from that Venusaur. So maybe expecting a Muddy Water here and wanting to better his situation, as that is a Muddy Water indeed. Definitely it doesn't connect, of course, with the Groudon since it did protect, but it will on the Venusaur. Will it get an accuracy drop? It does not. So, why do you think that Kyle opted better to go for the protect there rather than the all-out damage that he could have actually gone for with a single target?
Yeah, it was quite a surprising protect, because he had seen that the Groudon did move before the Tapu Fini, so maybe scared of a potential speed tie between the Tapu Fini and the Groudon. But at that point, it did seem like you had the opportunity to go for that +4 Precipice Blades into the Tapu Fini, which would have turned into single target because you've just taken care of the Solgaleo as well. So almost certainly going to be enough on the Tapu Fini. So quite surprising to see that protect there, but at least now he still does have an opportunity to go for that Precipice Blades whenever he wants still. The Grimmsnarl and Tapu Fini should still be underspeeding the Groudon. It would just be a spreads Precipice Blades at this point, so maybe the Tapu Fini would be able to survive that. Maybe you need to go for an attack with the Venusaur into the Tapu Fini as well. Could also just be trying to stall out the Misty Terrain so that Venusaur can start going for those Sleep Powders as well.
True. As we are going to be seeing the Tapu Fini this turn round go for the protect. It wants to be able to try to slow down Kyle's momentum, as the Venusaur did target into it, potentially with that Leaf Storm, and we are going to be seeing Precipice Blades come out from the Groudon. It does connect with the Grimmsnarl, and it does not pick up the KO. 9 HP survival right there, being able to whittle down the Groudon further with regards to its HP, as the Misty Terrain does now cease to exist on the field.
Yeah, so Venusaur can go for those Sleep Powders at this point, but maybe still just wants to go on the offensive. Could take out the Grimmsnarl with an accurate move if it goes for Earth Power or Weather Ball at that point. Then the Precipice Blaze just needs to connect with one Pokemon, but you could also go for the Tapu Fini with a Leaf Storm, and then that's probably going to be in range at that point of the Precipice Blades, but that would still need to connect with both the Grimmsnarl and the Tapu Fini, and the damage that the Spirit Break did probably going to be enough to take out the Groudon at this point. So it's trying to maximize your odds with the Precipice Blades at this point. Tapu Fini has survived 3 turns in the face of this +4 Groudon at this point, but not going for the Precipice Blade for 2 of them and protecting in the second. We'll have to see if it's going to happen this turn, but Sucker Punch, not quite enough.
Not quite enough, just missing out for the KO, but guess what didn't miss? The Sleep Powder from the Venusaur into the Tapu Fini slot. You can see the frustration on Flavio's face right there, as the Rock Slide is more than enough to pick up a KO onto the Grimmsnarl, whilst being able to deal chip damage onto the Tapu Fini. And maybe the choice of that was to potentially even pick up a flinch if possible onto it, as we are going to be seeing the leftovers recovery bring a bit of HP back up for Tapu Fini.
There was always the possibility of the Rotom switching in there as well, but at that point the Grimmsnarl was so low it's going to be KO'd to anything at that point. The Tapu Fini is boosted as well in its defenses, so you do want to try and be keeping that on the field to try and exert that pressure with the Calm Minds as well. So quite surprising to see the Rock Slide there, and that's 4 opportunities that Groudon has had to just go for a Precipice Blade into this Tapu Fini here, and if it does go for a Precipice Blade at this point, then it's not going to affect the Rotom. So a little bit of a missed opportunity for multiple turns there. Just try and connect with the Precipice Blades. We'll have to see if that's going to be the option that the Groudon wants to go for here. And if the Rotom is able to outspeed the Groudon, it could just overheat it instead.
But it's not going to risk it. It's going to go for the protect, as the Venusaur is not playing around. It goes for the Leaf Storm, hoping to somehow pick up a KO. But the most important thing is that it was able to deal a good chunk of damage. Hopefully, the Groudon on Kyle's side is what he's thinking, is going to try to connect and pick up any sort of KO. I don't think so at that range. But guess what? It's not about what I think. It's what about the game does. And that is a critical hit KO onto Flavio, propelling Kyle further closer to the top 4 scenario that he's so gassedly chasing.
Yeah, we just have to see who's faster between the Rotom and the Groudon at this point. If the Groudon's able to move first, it will get that Rock Slide and just has to connect. Both Pokemon have to try and connect their move. Not perfect accuracy with the Overheat and the Rock Slide, but it is the Groudon that's moving first and does miss.
Oh, it misses. The Rotom doesn't. It goes for the Overheat. It does pick up a KO onto the Groudon. Naturally, it had to go for Overheat, given the fact that Groudon is a ground type, and the only other offensive move on the Rotom would be that Thunderbolt, which is immune to it.
Yeah, so now we're down to Venusaur and Grimmsnarl. Not going to be able to threaten the Rotom too much at all. Can't even go for the Sleep Powder because of the safety goggles. So really the best option the Venusaur has is non-weather Weather Ball. So really not going to be doing too much damage here. At least the Grimmsnarl will be able to reduce the damage output with the light screens and then the Spirit Breaks as well.
As we are going to be seeing the Venusaur go for that normal type of Weather Ball move right there, not being able to deal that much damage at all. And guess what? Flavio's got something cooking in the oven with the nasty plots, trying to bring the special attack back up to neutral and even further perhaps.
Yeah, so we're going to have the nasty plots against the Spirit Breaks. So Rotom's going to come out positive at least at the end of each turn, getting +1 if the Spirit Break does connect with the Rotom. But you can see the Weather Ball being the best option for the Venusaur. We so often see Venusaur drop its Sludge Bomb to have space for that Weather Ball, but it should be much more effective against this Rotom. But you can see how much damage it's doing. It's just not really doing too much damage at the Rotom, but every little bit of chip helps.
It definitely does, as we saw the nasty plot second turn round going, bring the Rotom back up to +2, but now the Spirit Break is able to bring that down to +1. So it's a race against time in this scenario for Flavio to be able to out damage Kyle's Pokemon.
Yeah, so still just going to be going for the Leaf Storm at this point. So slightly stronger than the Weather Ball, factoring in that it is the same type as the Venusaur. But at this point, you're really not going to be doing too much damage with the Venusaur, which is going to dodge that overheat anyway.
As you do, as the Spirit Break is going to be coming out and whittling down the HP and the chances for Flavio to be able to force this into a Game 3.
It's looking very rough for Flavio at this point. So Rotom is definitely the Pokemon you want facing down a Venusaur and a Grimmsnarl, but not just on its own, not when it's got the light screen going. You've got the Spirit Breaks going as well to keep reducing the special attack of the Rotom. And at this point, the Leaf Storm does connect, probably going to put the Rotom in range of that final Spirit Break.
It does seem to be the case, bringing itself down to -4 of its special attack. And we see another nasty plot rather than an attack from Rotom, as maybe trying to bag on the potential miss. But guess what? The Spirit Break doesn't miss and sends Kyle straight through to the top 4 of this tournament. In what a style as well, to be honest.
Yeah, that was quite a game there, and it looks like Groudon is going to be the Pokemon, the restricted Pokemon that is going to be joining the Zacian. So that's definitely a Pokemon that you do want to be facing down on those Zacians. But yeah, what a game! The Groudon just going for those Sworn stances, ending up at +4, being able to weather that Dynamax Solgaleo as well, and being able to do a huge amount of damage, and then just getting into that end game, even with just no weather on the fields, even the normal Weather Balls and the Spirit Break, the Grimmsnarl was still enough to break through that Rotom.
And we felt at times, both you and I, that it seemed like Kyle was a bit hesitant in clicking the Precipice Blades at some point, where he just went for a very passive protect that you'd expect him to try to go for the offensive, but he was able to just whittle down Flavio's Pokemon over time, try to be a bit cautious, reading certain protects or whatnot, because he could have even read the protect from the Tapu Fini that turn as well, trying to out-protect his opponents, but he was able to pull it out of the bag, essentially.
Yeah, still was able to connect with the Sleep Powder again onto the Tapu Fini, another crucial Sleep Powder connect. So we had both crucial ones in that game, one against the Solgaleo to waste that Dynamax, and again to stop the Tapu Fini from being able to move and get a potential Moonblast into the Groudon to pick up that final bit of damage to get the KO. But yeah, able to just about pull through. The Tapu Fini did get a critical hit at the end as well. Would have probably survived at that point, but would have still had to wake up.
Yeah, I think so. And think of course the delay in trying to outlast the missed terrain for it not to be on the field anymore and go for the Sleep Powder as well was very detrimental, because he was able to, on Kyle's side, able to slow down Flavio's pace. But then, of course, we did see a bit of unluckiness from Flavio's side, being able to take hits that he wasn't expecting to. But Kyle was able to capitalize off of it, take full advantage of it, and try to push himself forwards, which he was able to do, and huge props to him into the top 4.
Yeah, so going to be our final person joining the others in the top 4 here. So now we're going to cut to another short break, and we will be right back with that top 4. So stay tuned.